The psychology of a child who grew up too fast. Do you recognize this person? From the outside, they are the very picture of competence and self-reliance. They are the responsible one, the high achiever, the person who always has it all together, the calm eye in every storm. They are the friend you call in a crisis at 3 a.m., the employee who requires no supervision, the family member who silently carries the emotional weight for everyone else. They navigate the world with a strange and preternatural maturity, a calm and capable demeanor that seems almost uncanny, as if they were born with a user's manual for a world that baffles everyone else. They are an old soul in a young body, a miniature adult who has seemingly bypassed the messy, chaotic, and vulnerable stages of childhood altogether. They are a pillar of strength, a rock of stability, a testament to the power of human resilience. This is the story they show to the world. This is the story they have told themselves for so long that they have come to believe it is the whole truth. But if you could look beneath this carefully constructed facade of invulnerability, if you could peer into the silent, hidden chambers of their inner world with a kind of psychic X-ray, you would see a vastly different and devastating reality. You would not see a rock. You would see a terrified child, standing alone in the ruins of a childhood that never was. A child who is desperately holding up the entire world on their small shoulders, their legs trembling from the impossible weight, their arms aching, their heart frozen in a state of hypervigilant terror, convinced that if they let go for even a single second, everything and everyone they love will collapse into chaos. This is the profound and tragic secret of the child who grew up too fast. Their competence is not a sign of strength, it is a trauma response. Their independence is not a virtue, it is a scar tissue formed over a profound wound of abandonment. Their maturity is not a gift, it is a cage forged in the fires of necessity. They were not born an old soul, they were forced to become one, conscripted into an emotional war before they had even learned the rules of play. They are the walking wounded, the silent survivors of a specific and insidious kind of psychological theft, the theft of their own childhood. To understand the complex, paradoxical, and often deeply self-destructive psychology of this individual is to journey into a world of inverted realities where strength is weakness, responsibility is a prison, and the desperate quest for control is the ultimate act of self-abandonment. The birth of the parentified child, the great and terrible. Inversion. No child is born a miniature adult. They are born into a state of absolute instinctual dependence, with a psyche that is porous, playful, and exquisitely vulnerable. The natural sacred order of life is that this vulnerability is held and protected by a strong, safe container provided by the caregivers. The child's job is to be, to feel, to play, to explore, to be gloriously, unapologetically needy, secure in the knowledge that the adults are in charge. The parentified child, however, is born into a world where this sacred order has been turned upside down. They are born into chaos, into a vacuum of adult responsibility, and their psyche, in a desperate act of survival, rushes to fill the void. This inversion can be brutally obvious, as in the case of a child forced to care for a physically ill, addicted, or severely depressed parent. They become the literal caregiver, making the meals, paying the bills, managing the household, parenting their own younger siblings. They become the functional head of a household they are not equipped to lead. Their small hands, meant for playing with toys, are instead learning how to write checks or administer medication. Their minds, meant for learning the alphabet, are instead learning the complex and terrifying art of managing an adult's crisis. But more often, the inversion is subtle, emotional, and almost invisible to the outside world, which makes it even more insidious. This is the child who becomes the confidant, the therapist, and the emotional regulator for a narcissistic, anxious, or emotionally immature parent. They learn, with the uncanny perception of a creature whose survival depends on it, to read their parents' moods as a meteorologist reads the weather. They learn to anticipate their needs, to soothe their anxieties, to mediate their conflicts, to be the calm, stable center in a chaotic emotional home. They learn to swallow their own tears to comfort a weeping parent. They learn to put aside their own childhood fears to become a cheerleader for a parent's fragile ego. They become a tiny, unlicensed psychologist, performing a role they can neither comprehend nor refuse. In both of these scenarios, a silent, terrible transaction takes place. The child, in order to secure a fragile sense of safety and a desperately needed scrap of connection, agrees to forfeit their own childhood. They put their own needs, their need for play, for spontaneity, for comfort, for carefree dependence, into a locked box and bury it deep within the frozen soil of their psyche. They learn a single, devastating lesson that will become the central organizing principle of their entire life. My needs are a burden. My feelings are inconvenient. My vulnerability is dangerous. My worth is not inherent. My worth is contingent on my utility to others. I am not loved for who I am. I am loved for what I do for you. They cease to be a human being and become a human doing. Their entire identity is constructed around this role of the caregiver, the responsible one, the problem solver. This role becomes their persona, the term Carl Jung used for the social mask. And it is a mask that is welded to their face with the heat of a primal survival instinct. The world tragically reinforces this. They receive praise for their maturity, for their responsibility, for being such a good little helper, for being wise beyond their years. This praise is like a drug. It is a fleeting, conditional substitute for the deep, unconditional love and safety they never received. And so they double down on the performance. They become more competent, more responsible, more self-reliant, further entombing the real, needy, vulnerable child who is starving to death within them. The inner architecture of the pseudo-adult, a fortress, built on a foundation of fear. As this child grows into an adult, this early survival strategy solidifies into a rigid and deeply entrenched psychological structure. Their inner world is not that of a normal adult. It is a fortress, a meticulously managed garrison built on a foundation of profound and terrifying anxiety. To understand their often paradoxical behavior, you must understand the core tenets of their internal operating system, the unconscious laws that govern their every move. The first and most fundamental tenet is a pathological and global sense of responsibility. The parentified child grows into an adult who feels unconsciously responsible for everything and everyone. They walk into a room and instantly scan it for problems to solve, for people to fix, for emotional fires to put out, for potential chaos to manage. Their nervous system is permanently set to threat detection. Their relationships are almost always a tragic reenactment of their childhood role. They are drawn with the magnetic pull of an unhealed wound to projects, to needy, chaotic, or emotionally unavailable partners and friends. They are drawn to the familiar dynamic of being the capable one, the one who gives more than they receive. To be in a relationship where they are not needed, where they are asked simply to be and to receive, is a source of profound and terrifying anxiety. It feels unnatural, undeserved, and deeply unsafe. The idea of being cared for is so foreign that it registers in their psyche as a threat. The second tenet is a compulsive and suffocating need for control. Having grown up in an environment that was unpredictable and unsafe, where the adults were not in control, They have learned that the only way to survive is to control everything. They micromanage their lives, their careers, their finances, their emotions, and the emotions of those around them. Spontaneity is the enemy. Vulnerability is a catastrophic failure of the system. They live in their heads in a world of lists, plans, and contingency strategies for disasters that have not yet happened. Their mind is a tireless sentinel, a sleepless warden constantly scanning the horizon for potential threats. This gives them their characteristic competence and their ability to succeed in the external world, but it comes at a terrible price. They are completely cut off from the wisdom of their body, from the flow of their intuition, from the joyful, surrendered chaos of life itself. They are the warden of their own, meticulously managed but joyless and deeply lonely prison. The third and most poignant tenet is a profound and deeply ingrained inability to receive. Because their own needs were a source of shame and danger in childhood, they have learned to become radically, almost aggressively, self-sufficient. To ask for help, to admit a need, to show a vulnerability, to confess that they are not okay, these feel on a deep, unconscious level like a matter of life and death. They are the person who will give you the shirt off their back, but who will never admit that they are cold. They are a one-way street of caregiving. This creates a profound and tragic loneliness. They are often surrounded by people, but they are an island, separated by a moat of their own competence. No one is ever allowed to get close enough to see the cracks in their armor, to touch the deeply buried, starving child who is desperate for the very care and comfort they so freely give to others. To receive would be to surrender control, to admit that they are not a rock, and for the parentified child, that surrender feels like annihilation. The shadow of the eternal child, the inevitable return of the repressed. The psyche, however, has a way of seeking wholeness. It is a self-regulating system that will not tolerate a state of profound imbalance forever. The child you have buried alive does not die. It goes into the shadow, the unconscious basement of your mind, and from there, it wages a silent and often devastating war against the competent, hyper-mature adult you have become. The more you identify with your responsible, controlled persona, the more powerful, chaotic, and infantile your repressed inner child becomes. This is the source of the baffling and deeply shameful self-sabotage that so often plagues the life of the high-achieving pseudo-adult. You see it in the hyper-responsible CEO who has a secret gambling addiction. You see it in the selfless, caregiving nurse who binge eats in secret at night. You see it in the disciplined academic who falls into periods of profound, debilitating procrastination that threatens their entire career. You see it in the person who builds a perfect life, only to inexplicably burn it all to the ground with a reckless affair or a sudden, impulsive decision. These are not character flaws, these are not signs of weakness. They are acts of rebellion by the exiled child, desperate and violent attempts to shatter the prison of the persona. The inner child, starved of its natural right to play, to rest, to be messy and imperfect, will erupt from the shadow in distorted and destructive ways. The addiction is a desperate, clumsy attempt to feel something, anything, to escape the crushing, soul-numbing pressure of the persona. The binge eating is a ravenous hunger for the comfort, the sweetness, the unconditional nourishment that were never given. The procrastination is a passive-aggressive refusal to be the good, productive child for one more second. Your self-sabotaging behaviors are not the problem, they are the symptom. They are the desperate, coded messages from a part of your soul that you have tried to murder, a part that is screaming in the only language it has left, that it is refusing to stay dead. This inner schism also manifests as a profound and chronic emptiness, a quiet despair that no amount of external success can touch. the pseudo-adult can achieve everything the world deems valuable, the career, the money, the accolades, and still feel a soul-crushing sense of meaninglessness and fraudulence. This is because all of their achievements have been in service of the false self, the persona. They have been a desperate attempt to finally earn the love and safety that should have been unconditional. But no amount of external validation can heal that original wound. Each achievement once attained feels hollow because it has not nourished the real, hidden child within. The emptiness is the feeling of that child sitting alone in the dark basement of the psyche, still waiting for a parent to come and see them, to hold them, and to love them not for what they do, but for who they are. The difficult and sacred path of healing. Learning to parent yourself from the inside out. How does this person ever find their way back to wholeness? The path of healing for the parentified child is a long, arduous, and profoundly counterintuitive journey. It is not about becoming more responsible, more disciplined, or more healed. In fact, it is the exact opposite. It is the sacred and terrifying work of learning to be irresponsible, to be vulnerable, to be gloriously selfish, and to finally, for the first time, allow the buried child to come out into the light. This is the sacred process of reparenting the self. It is the act of the conscious adult self turning inward and finally giving the inner child the safety, love, and permission they never received from the outside. The first step on this path is a radical and compassionate acknowledgement of the truth. You must be willing to look back at your own childhood, not with the adult's rationalizing, defending mind. It wasn't that bad, and my parents did their best. It made me strong, but with the child's honest, feeling heart. You must be willing to grieve for the childhood you never had. You must allow yourself to feel the profound anger and sadness for what was stolen from you. This is not about blaming your parents. It is about validating your own experience. It is about finally giving your inner child the one thing they have always been denied, the acknowledgement that their feelings were real, that their burden was too heavy, and that what happened to them was not okay. This act of bearing witness to your own past is the first crucial step in building a new, trusting relationship with your inner self. The second step is the conscious and deliberate cultivation of play and glorious uselessness. Your entire life has been organized around the principle of utility. You must now begin to actively practice the art of being useless. This can be terrifying. It will feel lazy, self-indulgent, and deeply wrong. It means scheduling time in your calendar for activities that have no goal, no purpose, and no measurable outcome. It means finger painting, dancing badly in your living room, taking a nap in the middle of the day, wandering aimlessly in the woods, reading a book for pure pleasure with no intention of learning anything. These are not indulgences, they are essential acts of psychic medicine. You are teaching your chronically overactivated nervous system, one small act at a time, that it is safe to exist without being productive, that your worth is not tied to your output. You are feeding your starving inner child the essential nutrient of unstructured, purposeless being. The third and most challenging step is learning the art of receiving and setting firm boundaries. You must begin to practice saying no to the demands of others, not with a long, apologetic explanation, but with a simple, quiet clarity. You must start to disappoint people. This will feel like a betrayal, like a catastrophic failure of your core identity. You must learn to tolerate the discomfort of someone else's disapproval and to realize that you can survive it. Each time you set a boundary, each time you refuse to take on a responsibility that is not yours, you are casting a vote for your own well-being. And you must begin in small, terrifying increments to ask for help. You must risk revealing a need to a safe and trusted person, to allow someone to care for you, to comfort you, to help you. This is the ultimate act of courage for the parentified child. It is the act that finally begins to dismantle the lonely fortress of self-reliance and allows the possibility of true, interdependent connection to enter your life for the first time. The emergence of the true adult, strength in surrender, wholeness in vulnerability. What is the result of this difficult, sacred work? What happens when the pseudo-adult finally excavates, embraces, and integrates their inner child? They do not become a childish, irresponsible person. On the contrary, they become a true adult for the first time in their lives. The true adult is not the person who is pathologically self-reliant. They are the person who has the strength to be vulnerable, the wisdom to ask for help when they need it, and the open-hearted capacity to receive love and support. The true adult is not the person who is in constant, rigid control of their world. They are the person who can surrender to the flow of life, who can tolerate uncertainty, who can dance with the chaos without being consumed by it. The true adult is not the person who has eliminated their needs and feelings. They are the person who can honor their own needs as sacred and who can therefore meet the needs of others from a place of genuine fullness and choice, not from a desperate, unconscious attempt to earn their own worth. The competence that was once a brittle, fear-based trauma response becomes a grounded, flexible, and authentic strength. The sense of responsibility that was once a crushing, global burden becomes a discerning, focused capacity to care for what is truly theirs to care for and to let go of the rest. The immense energy that was once consumed with managing and suppressing their inner world is liberated for the purpose of genuine creativity, joy, and profound connection. They finally get to have their childhood, but they have it as an adult. They discover the joy of play, the pleasure of spontaneity, the deep comfort of being held and cared for. They have not regressed, they have integrated. They have become whole. The rock has revealed itself to be a garden, and in that garden, for the first time, something new and beautiful and authentically their own can finally begin to grow. If you recognize this fortress within yourself, know this: the child you abandoned in the basement of your psyche is still waiting for you. They have not given up hope. They are waiting for you to put down the weight of the world, to turn around, to walk down the stairs, and to finally come and get them. This is the journey of a lifetime. It is the long, hard, courageous road back to the simple, sacred, and terrifying truth of your own precious and unlived childhood.